The Real Estate Forum will address the unique issues and challenges confronting Fairfield County's homeowners and prospective buyers. We will try to shed light on how you as a buyer or seller might wish to adjust your expectations and strategies for purchasing or selling a home. We will be featuring interviews with real estate industry professionals who will be sharing their insights about the Fairfield County real estate market.
Good evening. My name is Richard Maybrook. I'm the producer of the Real Estate Forum. Tonight we have a very interesting show for you. We have a prominent attorney in Fairfield County who will be speaking with Ann. So without much further delay, I want to turn the show over to Ann Meyerson. Take it away, Ann.
Thank you, Richard, and good evening. Now I want to welcome our guest, Brad Aron. Welcome.
Thank you.
Brad wears two hats in the Westport, Weston, Fairfield community. He's a lawyer, and you also in the past have been a real estate developer. Could you tell us a little bit about those dual roles?
Sure. Recently, I've really dedicated more of my time to my law practice. About 10 years ago, I decided to get involved in real estate development. I more or less was an investor in a project, and I had a general contractor do the building. This was, we initially started in Darien, Connecticut. We built a couple of houses there. Things were very successful. We did very well with the profitability of the projects. Then we moved on.
When was this, Brad? About the 90s?
Yes, I'd say maybe 1998, 1999 was the first project. Mm-hmm. And we started small, always looking for a knockdown situation. Initially, the first project was maybe 1/3 of an acre. We bought the house actually, I think, for $385,000 in Darien.
Whoa. Good location?
Great location off of Route 1 in the center of town. Perfect location. At the time also, it was a lot less expensive to build. The subcontractor costs were lower. And
why was that, Brad, do you think?
I think at the time it was probably not quite as busy. I don't think there are quite as many builders out there building, and subcontractors were looking more for work at the time.
Now, have material costs increased too?
That's another thing too. Material costs have gone through the roof. I mean, the cost of copper has gone way up. The price of lumber went up quite a bit. We had a lull for a while, actually, about a year and a half ago. All material costs dropped a lot. But they've since gone up. The price of copper was under a dollar. I think it's a pound. And now it's, I believe it's a pound of copper. Now it's well over $2 an ounce.
So it's not as much fun being a developer?
No, it's much more expensive than it used to be, and it's a lot more risk. That's one of the reasons why it's not quite as easy to do it anymore and why I'm not doing it.
Well, you have a successful law practice. You're specializing in real estate?
I specialize in real estate. That's more than half of my business. One thing that I like to tell my clients is that they engage my law firm to handle a transaction. I'm the person who does all the work. I do all the negotiations. I draft the contracts. They hire my firm. They get me.
Okay, so you're not shuffling it off to a paralegal?
No, not at all. I have a full-time assistant who's been working for me for about 7 years now. I've been in private practice since 1995 in Westport. I'm actually in the same area that I've been in since 95. Initially, I think it was 3 buildings down, and I started the practice in 95. 2 years later, in 97, I moved to my current space, and I'm still there.
Interesting, yeah. And you enjoy it?
I enjoy it. I love the interaction with clients. I love the challenge of the legal profession.
Let's talk about the challenges in this, let's call it challenging market. What would you say is going on? Can you give us an idea? Are there differences happening now that weren't happening 4 years ago?
Definitely. I find that transactions are taking a lot longer to materialize. If I'm representing, let's say, a seller of a property, oftentimes you'll have multiple potential buyers before a deal actually is finalized. Like you may have someone who you think is going to buy the property, you go through negotiations, and the buyer may back out for some reason.
Yeah, I'm finding that's happening more now. What about, I always say you negotiate a property twice. First you negotiate it, you're laughing, you know what I'm talking about, yeah. First you negotiate it when you fix the price. Then you have those 1 volume, 2 volume building inspections, and then you renegotiate. At least that's what I'm finding. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes.
Quite a few, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think, I mean, because we have a buyer's market, I think you're finding that many of the buyers are much more emboldened than they used to be. You're not seeing that many multiple offer situations. So they know that they're the people that are really the person who may ultimately buy the house, and there's no competition.
What happened to the good old bidding wars?
I wish we still had them. I'm sure you do too, Ann.
Haven't seen any for a while.
No. Once in a while you do see them, though. I have seen a few. If houses have been marked down so much from their initial price that they're that attractive.
They hit the strike point.
Yes, you do have people coming in that have been waiting on the sidelines, and then you do ultimately see a couple of offers come in.
I did have 5 bids on a rental.
You did. Hopefully someone did ultimately rent the property, right?
I certainly hope so.
So well, getting back to what we were discussing, I am finding that since the buyer is in control in a lot of these transactions, the buyer is going to be very stringent with their inspections. And if they do find certain problems with the house, they're not going to accept them. They're going to either...
Give us an example, can you, Brad?
Sure. I mean, it even goes so far. I mean, sometimes you have situations where someone's buying a $2 million house, and maybe there's just a problem, let's say a furnace. A furnace maybe has not been serviced properly, or the seller doesn't have the service records over the last couple of years. The buyer is saying, well, either I want the furnace to be completely serviced, and I want a credit of a couple $1,000s, or I'm going to walk.
Do you think they're holding people's feet to the fire?
Sometimes they are.
Now, how do you react as an attorney in a situation like that?
Well, if I'm representing a buyer, I have to convey what my client is saying. I mean, sometimes I'll advise them and say, hey, what you're asking for may be considered a little bit unreasonable, but I will convey whatever you ask me to do. As long as it's ethical, I'll negotiate on their behalf.
And how does it usually turn out?
It turns out that the client's happy.
Okay.
The clients are always, they
now,
come
everybody
back.
watching the show is going to go back and ask for more things off on their building inspections based on what you've said, Brad.
Well, here's the thing that you do have to realize, though. I mean, if you are buying a very expensive house, and it's relatively new or even brand new, I mean, you're expecting things to be in very good condition. If you're buying a $3 million house, let's say, and it's only a year or two old, you still would expect it to be close to being in new condition. Not brand new, but if certain things have gone in the house and you're paying a good price for it, I think you have every reason to expect to negotiate some of your inspection items. That's not unreasonable.
What happens in the short sales? Is there much building inspection negotiating going on at that point?
The short sale, I think it's a very arbitrary thing, to be honest with you. I have a situation now where I have clients who are selling a property. I also do work in New York. So I have a client who's selling a house in the Hamptons. And at one time, the client alleges, I'm not so sure if this is the case, but she alleges the house was worth over $2 million. I don't think it was, but let's say, maybe...
In her mind, it was.
Sure. I mean, she's attached to the house. It was a nice house. Maybe it was worth $1.5 million. We have had a couple of offers on the house. One time somebody offered $500,000, another time $6 million. We're at $650 now, but actually we have lender approval at $650.
Interesting.
And it didn't matter.
So that's the price then?
That's the price, and it didn't really matter what the inspections really are at this point. I mean, they did some general inspections, but if they find little things here and there, the seller's not going to reduce the price.
So it also depends on the house and the circumstances. We don't arbitrarily want to say, everybody go in there and negotiate off your building inspections.
That's right.
Is that the biggest problem you're finding now in getting the deals done?
That's part of the problem. Also, getting the mortgages.
Ta-da!
That is really critical. I'm finding a lot of difficulty with people obtaining mortgages, especially if they're not putting a lot down on the property. They're not putting a high percentage deposit down.
What percentage are you speaking about, Brad, do you think?
Well, I still see clients trying to get houses with 90%, 95% mortgages.
I don't think that's happening anymore, is it?
FHA mortgages.
Whoa.
Government mortgages, people are still getting them, actually. But once you get over a certain threshold, if you don't have a conforming mortgage, then it's much harder to get to qualify.
This seems like an excellent point for us to let Kathleen Norwood speak a little bit. Thanks for joining us on the second half, Kathleen.
Nice to be here, Ann. Thank you.
Before we get to our next agenda, could we clarify on who qualifies for what mortgage when?